The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing. We have an amazing guest today coming to you all the way from Spain, the amazing Charlie Ward, who just wrote a book called I'm Just Charlie. And so we're going to talk to him in just a little while, and you're going to be so excited to hear from him. Before we begin, though, Charlie's been on the road traveling with the Reawaken America tour for the last several months. And the next stop is going to be in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. So I'd like to flash to that for you now. And you'll see and find Charlie at the Global Vision Bible Church in Mount Juliet, Tennessee on January 20th to 21st. And he'll be coming to you live there where you can meet him in person. In order to get to the event, you'll want to get tickets right away. So go to timetofreeamerica.com and get your tickets today. Make sure that when you go online, put your name, you text them, and they'll text you back. They'll call you back. If they don't call you back right away, text them over and over till they do get back to you. When they do, and you order tickets, make sure you mention Braveheart, and they'll give you 10% off your tickets. So that is where Charlie's going to be in January. At the event also will be Mike Lindell from My Pillow. He is one of the speakers as well. So I'd like for you to hear a little bit about what Mike's offering with his company, My Pillow, for the Christmas season. Again, use the code Braveheart to order any of these amazing products as Christmas gifts this Christmas.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm excited to bring you my biggest bedding sale ever, just in time for Christmas. Get my Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. A set of pillowcases, only $9.98. Rejuvenate your bed with a My Pillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. We also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles. We even have blankets for your pets. Get duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more, all at the biggest discounts ever. I know my bedding products are perfect for you, and I'm extending my money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1st, 2023, making them the perfect gifts for your friends, your family, and everyone you know. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen, use your promo code, and you'll get huge discounts on all My Pillow bedding products, including my Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, healing, connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me from across the sea is the amazing Charlie Ward. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you, Jill. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm amazing. So you are in Spain today? Is that where you're calling in from?
I'm in sunny Spain right now. It's beautiful here on the south coast facing Africa. The temperature is around 20 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 80 odd Fahrenheit. It's a beautiful sunny day, clear blue skies and beautiful.
Well, you know, Charlie, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a meeting and event planner. So I'm going to have to connect with you to see if we can't do some kind of a conference or a retreat in Spain with you. That would be amazing. So we'll have to talk about that afterwards and see if we can't get something going there.
Sure.
Well, Charlie, I'd love to begin and just go right in, deep dive into your childhood, Charlie. I'd love to take us on a journey back to little Charlie growing up and bring us through grammar school, junior high, high school, all the way to today, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I was born and brought up in a religious cult called Plymouth Brethren. My parents were in it, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. It went back many generations. And being born into a religious cult meant that we were completely separate from other children. Even the houses we lived in were detached houses. And even though we went to normal school, we were picked up at lunchtime to go home to eat lunch at home with the family, which in a way was actually very nice, but we were not allowed to mix with other children. Nowadays, the religious cult have their own schools. So I grew up and I went through school being told by my parents that there was no need to study at school, which was probably actually a good thing in hindsight, because the rapture, the end of the world, was coming before the year 2000, that none of us would ever see the year 2000, not possible. And so there was many things that didn't matter in life because the end of the world was coming. One of my pet peeves was the fact that when normal children went to a normal dentist, we went to the school dentist, which was cheap and cheerful because we didn't need to worry about our teeth because the end of the world was coming. When I came out, of course, then I had to deal with a mouthful of fillings and what have you later on in life. But through school...
Let's pause there for just a moment, if you wouldn't mind, because that's a pretty heavy beginning of your childhood, Charlie. So can you share with us what you were going through emotionally as a little boy? Were you filled with a spirit of fear, constant fear of doom and gloom, or what was your little boy feeling inside? Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, I remember it vividly because I was bullied at school. Because number one, I didn't watch television, so I didn't know what anybody else was talking about. I didn't know what was going on in the world in general because I was completely detached from it all. And again, in hindsight, I look back and this is all part of this journey that I now understand that I didn't understand at the time. It was a tough time. It was a very, very tough time at school. And this is why I wrote my autobiography. And a lot of people understand my childhood, even at school, not going into assembly, not celebrating birthdays, not celebrating Christmas, not doing all of these things. People tend to pick on you because you're an outsider. And I went through all of my school life until high school, being picked on, being bullied, being beaten up, etc. And it was not a nice place to be at school. It was really, really bad. And then when I started high school, and this is in my book as well, there was a certain couple of lads who had something confiscated off them by the headmaster. And it was hidden in his office. And one of them said to me, if you break into his office during assembly and nobody's around, you can get it back for us. And then you'll be in our group, if you like. And that's exactly what I did. I broke into it. Well, I say break in. I just opened the door and walked in because nobody was around in that part of the school. And I found his catapult, which was in the drawer. And I took that and I took a few other things as well. And I went and said, right, there's your catapult. I want £1 for it. And he gave me £1. He wasn't very happy, but he gave me £1. And then he gave me a big thank you. And then I gave the other stuff back to other kids that had been confiscated and got another £1 and another £1. So my business brain was working at a very young age there. I think I was about 13 or 14. And then I suddenly went from being 0 in the school to being the hero. And suddenly everybody liked Charlie at school. And the girls suddenly took notice of me because I'd gone from being this squeaky clean little boy who didn't talk to anybody to being, suddenly people became very interested in me at school because I was with the in crowd, if you like.
So you went from being totally innocent to the rebel, huh? You became the rebel overnight.
That's pretty much true. I think the rebel was always inside me. I think he just needed letting out.
Yeah. Well, before the rebel came out and you were being bullied, Charlie, were you having suicide ideation thoughts and wanting to end your life because of the bullying? A lot of kids go through that where I've been involved with a lot of healing myself, and I've been in environments where young children today, Charlie, it's so sad. They literally cut their whole entire skin with objects, and I've met these children and asked them, why are you cutting yourself? And they said, because I feel so dead inside that when I cut myself, it's the only time that I feel like I'm alive. It's like the pain of cutting their skin makes them feel alive. So when you were going through this deep pain and hurt, how did you process it? What was going on in your mind? Did you want to take drugs? Did you want to end your life?
No, I didn't. Not at any stage. And I think that's very much a modern phenomenon. And I think the one thing I did have, I had family around me that I could talk to. And I think that's what lacks in society nowadays, a matriarch and a patriarch. My father, and I look back again at some of the things that I thought were a bit crazy at the time, but my father's answer to problems, number one, the end of the world was coming, and number two, he was actually right on number two, and that was to pray.
Okay.
So instead of doing harm to myself, he encouraged me to pray. The biggest thing nowadays is people do harm to themselves because they're not taught that they can connect to their creator. And I think that's a very, very important difference between the 1960s as a child growing up. The answer was to pray, because people have become so detached from God, so detached from church, so detached from everything to do with spirituality. Nobody even talks about praying about a problem and asking God for his help. So they land up self-harming. They land up doing things, trying to commit suicide. Whereas that wasn't even in the thought process in the 60s. It was just a question of praying for help, praying for guidance. And, God helped me through my time at school. It wasn't nice, but he helped me through it. And he gave me the courage and the strength.
So even though your family was involved with this cult, they still prayed. And would you say, I mean, now that you're a Christian, I know that you're a Christian now, would you say they were praying for God, to God that you know of today? Is that
100%? 100%.
Okay.
There was their teaching was bang on right, was spot on.
Okay.
Their teaching was very much aligned with Baptist teaching.
Okay.
The Baptist Church, very much in line with that. But what had happened was, it's what man had added and taken away that I disagreed with. And the probably the most important part of that was the drinking of alcohol from the age of 12, which was encouraged.
Oh, wow.
To drink whiskey. And that was because the leader was an alcoholic. So it made him feel comfortable to be surrounded by other people drinking. So that also, you have to put your mind as to a young person at the age of 12 that is allowed to have a drink of whiskey. Obviously, that builds up your status with other people, that you're allowed to when they're not. So there was things that they put in place to make you feel better than them, etc. But the basic fundamentals of their teaching about God, about Jesus Christ, about the Holy Spirit were bang on right. And I was born a Christian, and I became detached when I left because I wanted to establish truth. And this is where the first lesson of truth was to detach spirituality from religion. Once I managed to do that, then everything else fell into place.
You know, I have a saying from when I was younger, when I really started to grasp Christianity at its essence, and there was a saying that says, I'm not religious, I just love the Lord. And I like that. I'm not religious, I just love the Lord.
Well, religion was created by man. And even if we want to get cynical, the Bible was written by man. It wasn't written by God. The Quran was written by man. It wasn't written by God. Yes, these people were in contact with God, for sure, whether it's the Quran or the Bible. These people were in contact 100% with God. But it was written by man. It was written by prophets. It was written by um, there's many different types of people who wrote books of the Bible. And, these are all very, very beneficial when we learn to understand them and translate them correctly, because there's a lot of misinterpretation of Scripture and of the Quran. I get a lot of questions about the fact that I was born a Christian and yet my wife was born a Muslim. And some people go, well, you can't marry her without becoming a Muslim. God never said that. This is somebody else down the line that said this. Because God has blessed us in a relationship like you could never imagine. And he's made us so close because at the end of the day, we give glory to God. We love God the Father. We love the Lord Jesus Christ. We without that, and the Holy Spirit is how we communicate. We both understand that. And the fact that we came from different religions, and so certain ones can say this and certain ones can say that, that's man's opinion. The most important thing to me is not man's opinion. If I was worried about man's opinion, I wouldn't be doing a podcast.
That's awesome.
I just worry about what God thinks about Charlie Ward, what God thinks about my wife and my family, and are we living our lives according to God's will? That's it.
That's amazing. So thank you for that. So let's go back to that high school boy, like 13, 14, 15, the rebel that's coming out, and take us forward from that then.
Well, there's a lot of people smile about this. So I talked about it the other day. The first girl that ever asked me out was a girl called Janet Driver, and she said, did I want to go out with her? And I said, yes, I do. Where to? And she said, no, I want to know if you want to go out with me. And I was like, yeah, but where to? I hadn't got a clue what she meant. And I used to cycle on my bike about 7 or 8 miles to see her after school. And I was a little boy in love and what have you. And she was an amazing person who helped me through the side of where I'd been put aside and been left outside. And she just made me feel better about myself. And yes, I went through a number of phases. I actually got expelled from school on the last day of school.
Oh my gosh, how could someone expel a child on the last day of school? You could suspend them, but to expel them. Oh.
I was expelled for not wearing a tie. We hadn't worn a tie at school for years. But apparently they were told in assembly, which I was not in, that they had to wear a tie on the last day of school. And nobody told me. So they expelled me and I just went. And that was it. I didn't come back. And there was a lot of people who said, oh, that will be a negative in your life from a point of view of work and one thing and another. And it certainly wasn't, because I worked for my father at the start. Then I worked for my uncle. Then I worked for my father-in-law. And then I worked for myself. And I've always worked for myself, apart from one time where my second wife wanted me to come back and work for a normal company and do a normal job. And that was another story.
What kind of work did you do?
For my father, he was in the shoe trade.
Okay.
And I got bored with sitting at women's feet. who would look at about 7 or 8 pairs of shoes and not buy any of them. I couldn't see the point in that. And then I got bored with that, so I went and worked for my uncle, and that was working in a metalwork factory. And after about a year of that, I got completely bored with that. And then I got married, and my father-in-law offered me a job working for him. He had a bedding and furniture shop, and I did all the deliveries for him, and he paid me double what I was worth. So I thought that was good fun, but I didn't like working for him. Then I worked for myself, and I had a building company. I used to build houses. And I got a group of people together, roofers, tilers, bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, the whole lot, and just created my own building business. And that was very successful, did very well at that. And then when I came out of the religious cult, I literally got away from that whole scene and started working in the holiday business in Spain. And it was timeshare, multi-ownership, multi-vacation, etc. And worked my way through the rungs right up until the top.
And you were married, the first wife that you said you had, that ended obviously in divorce. Did you have children with your first wife?
I had an arranged marriage at 18 in the religion, and we had 3 children. And I was divorced at the age of 23. Well, we separated at 23 because they kept her within the religion, and I was kicked out. So I wasn't allowed to see them until I was 27, 28, unless it was supervised visits. And then they were difficult times because I managed to blackmail her at 28 to come out of the religion by sleeping with her when she should have been at church. And said, either you tell them or I tell them. And they kicked her out. But then it was quite sad because we realized that we didn't really have anything in common. We had the kids in common for sure. But it was the religion that put us together. And it was messy. That would be an understatement. It was not nice. It was a very difficult time in my life. For any man who's watching me, you feel like a failure if your marriage is broken down. It's not a nice feeling.
Well, people don't realize when you're going through a divorce, it's like a death. It's a death in your
Yep.
life. And you know, it's a huge trauma, and there's so much trauma that goes with it. And then for you not to be able to see your beloved children too, people
Yep.
don't realize what you really go through.
It was a very difficult time. It was not nice. It was a horrible time. And my children suffered because of it. Because people forget that, it's tough on me. It's tough on my ex-wife, but the children suffered immensely, not having that stable family unit around them. I see it now with Justin, the value it brings to him to have a daddy and mummy who love each other around him all the time, gives him the confidence to do what he does, gives him, he's a happy young man and he enjoys life. And when I was younger, I didn't see the value of that, which, an ounce of foresight is worth a ton of hindsight. You look back at times like that, not nice, but we got through it, and it was horrible. It was messy, and those people who are watching this who've split up will know exactly how that feels. It's not nice, and there's 2 sides to everything. I was probably the worst out of the 2 because I was a young kid that didn't know what the hell was going on. Everything I'd been told, I'd been misled on, and I was trying to establish who Charlie Ward was, what the truth was, everything, and I got myself into trouble, and it was a very, very dark, difficult time.
So at that point in your life when things were so much in despair, Charlie, did you utilize any substances to anesthetize your pain? Did you get into drugs or alcohol or sleeping around? Did you do something to kind of divert from your pain?
Not drugs at that stage. At that stage, it was partying a lot. And, of course, when I married my wife, the first night I'd ever slept with a woman was on our first night of married life. And if I lived my life again, I would do the same. It was messy, to say the least. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, and nor had she. But there was something very, very special about that. And I would highly recommend it over against playing around beforehand. And that just comes from experiencing both sides. So when we'd split up, moving to Spain, it was like a playground. There was women to a penny. I mean, I'd go out every single night and come back with a completely different woman. Yes, I was drinking every single night, partying every single night. I wasn't into drugs at that time because they weren't around at that time. It was alcohol and women, and I was 28, 30 years old, and they were everywhere. You could go out and pick up women just for fun. It was way, way too easy. I had a nice house, a nice car, a nice income. So you become attractive. Mm-hmm. And I played that game for probably too long. And it was later on down the line that you start, the type of parties change. My money I was earning more and more money. So you get more and more extravagant, and then you realize that the people are only with you because you've got money. Mm-hmm. The girls are only with you. Well, they were not. It wasn't just money. It was because I was cheeky. I was fun. I didn't take myself too seriously. And the last thing I was looking for was a relationship. And when you tell a woman that the last thing you want is a relationship, and you're about 30 years old because you've been hurt for some unknown reason. Women have this.
They want to fix you. They want to fix you, and
don't they just? They're all there. This is the shoulder that you need to cry on.
I'm the one.
And you just say, no, I just want to get you in bed and do certain things, and just and they for some unknown reason, because you are that honest.
Yeah.
That they're convinced that they're the one that can change you, and of course. Charlie wasn't for changing at that stage. Yeah. Charlie was just out having an awful lot of fun, way too much fun, for my own good.
The rebel in you was still wild.
It was crazy. I remember one particular time I was sharing a very, very nice apartment with a guy called Jed. And we shared the same place. And we had a little side bet to see how many nights we could go out and pull a different girl. And after 14 nights, we were bored because we'd done it 14 nights consecutively, different women. So on the 14th night, we'd picked up these girls about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening. And by 9 o'clock, we'd finished with them. And we said, shall we go out and do it again? And we did sort of 2 girls in the same night. And it was just like, it became so silly because we were just characters. We were out there having fun. This was back in the 80s. 90s, the naughty 90s, I think. But it was a lot of fun. And because I didn't want to settle down, he didn't want to settle down. We just had an amazing, we had a lot of fun. And then I think it was about when I was 30 that I bumped into a girl that was probably a bit more than a bit of fun. And was teasing her. And she sort of took the tease, if you like. And we started seeing each other and having a bit of a relationship, which was unusual for me, but it was a good bit of fun. And then I was just going to get rid of her about 3 months after I'd started, because I had the opportunity to go off to South Africa to set up the game reserves in South Africa for holiday resorts. Mabula Lodge, Mabalingwe, Sambonani, Sabi Sabi, Sondela. There was a number of beautiful game reserves in South Africa that we went over to set up. And I said, I'm off to South Africa. She said, are we? And I was like, well, I hadn't even thought about the we. And she was like, when are we going? And I said, on Monday, which is like 4 days away. She said, well, what do you mean? I said, we're going on Monday. You better tell your boss you're quitting your job on Friday and we're going on Monday. This, I think, was the Thursday or something. So she went, okay. So she checked her job in. I said, look, don't worry. You can work for me. You can be my PA out there and you can be my secretary and run my life for me. And we got out to South Africa on Monday. And by Wednesday, I'd sacked her as my PA because she couldn't do as she was told. So that was quite funny. But I said, look, just enjoy. We got a beautiful house here in Johannesburg in a place called River Club. A beautiful house here. Just sit back and enjoy the sunshine by the swimming pool, whatever. And I'll earn the money. You just sit there and look pretty. And she did that. And we had a weekend home up in a place called Warmbaths, where it was up in the northern Transvaal, about 100 miles north of Joburg. We used to go up there at weekends into the game reserve. And Yeah, we had a best part of a year out there and had a lot of fun in helping them set these places up, which was great fun. And then I can't remember if I proposed to her out there or whether I proposed to her when we got back home, one or t'other. But I landed up, that was my second wife. I married her.
And so how long did that last?
That lasted for about 4 or 5 years, I think, from memory.
Did you have children with her or no?
No, just enjoyed the practice. I didn't produce any kids.
And how did that marriage end? Why did it end after 4 or 5 years?
When we came back, she didn't have a job. So I said, what do you want to do? Look, forget about I've got to earn money. What do you want to do? And she said, I've always wanted to be an air hostess. So she went through all the process and got a job with Virgin Atlantic. The trouble was that with Virgin Atlantic, they're not the most faithful of people. And down route, all her mates came and told me before she did that she was seeing one of the captains down route. So that put an end to that one.
Yeah.
She was the last person to tell me. Everyone else told me first. So I knocked that one on the head, which was sad.
So here you finally find a woman who you settled down with, and you stayed faithful to her, and then she cheats on you.
Correct.
So that, I'm sure that sent you into another whirlwind of feeling like a failure and going through that same emotional pain again of loss.
Yep. And that was a difficult time. It was difficult because I was living in Bristol at the time, because she talked me into coming back to England to live, rather than being traveling around the world. And so I didn't know anybody. It was everyone we knew was her friends. Although 2 of her friends wanted to have an affair with me the minute I'd split up with her, that wasn't really my cup of tea. Last thing I wanted at that stage was another relationship. So yes, I had another little wild phase of my life before heading back to Spain to continue another wild phase of my life. And then whilst I was in Spain, I was working out in Spain, and I'm trying to think. Yes, that's right. I was working in Spain, and there was one of my friends contacted me and said, Charlie, could you do me a favor? I've got a woman here whose husband is in a vegetative state in hospital and has been for 3 or 4 years. And she's been caring for him, and she's really depressed. And I just think that if she spent a weekend with you, it would cheer her up. And I went, yeah, no problem at all, because I had a nice house, nice car, nice everything. So he sent her over, and she came over to stay. And we went out for lunch on the beach on the Saturday. We were just having a really good time, just having a nice meal on the beach, having a bit of fun, a laugh and a joke. And at the end of the day, on the Saturday, she said to me, "This has been one of the best days of my life. I wish we could do it tomorrow." And I just sat there and I thought to myself, we can. So I phoned up my co-directors and said, I'm over, I'm done. I'm out. I'm finished, I'm done. And they were like, you can't. I've gone, it's done, mate. It's all done. I'm finished. I was 40 years old. I said, I'm finished. And then, because we were run by a mafia firm, the bosses turned up to see me and said, well, what are you doing? And I've gone, I'm done. Who are you going to work for? You work for anyone else who'll break your legs. I said, yeah, I'm not working for anybody. I'm just enjoying myself, enjoying life. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done. And I told them the story about this lady. And we went out for lunch on the Sunday. And I said, that's far more valuable to me. And I could see the big boss. It was quite a handful. It sort of resonated with him. I was telling the truth. So she stayed for a few more days, and then she went back to the UK feeling a lot better. And I started playing a bit of golf. And then the phone rang one day from a friend, a competitor of mine, who was in Singapore. And he said, Charlie, I hear you've retired. I said, yeah, I'm enjoying it. He said, I want you to come to Singapore and teach my people what you know. I said, I'm done, mate, I'm done. He said, I'll make you an offer. He said, I just want you here for 6 months. come and teach my people what you know. He said, because, you know, your record is unblemished in what you've done. So I said, okay, make me an offer. And if I like it, I'll take it. And if not, then I'll carry on doing what I'm doing. And I said, you only get one chance at an offer as well. You don't get a chance to up it and up it and up it. Make your first offer worth my time. If it's worth my time, I'll come. And I had a figure in my mind, and he gave me the offer, and it was more than I would have gone for. So I said, yeah, I'll come. And he said, fine, I'll book you a flight. When can you come? I said, tomorrow. So he said, I'll have you a flight for tomorrow. And I was out there. And I loved Singapore. But one of the first things, it was quite interesting. One of the first things when I got there is Charlie, you need a maid. I said, okay. So, but you have to go to maid school. You have to go to learn how to look after a maid, which I thought was funny. 2 days in Singapore on how to look after a maid. And then they got me a little Filipino who was lovely, called Mary Faye. She worked for me for 10 years. But after the first week, the guys came to me and said, you need to take her passport off her so that she can't just leave you. And I went, I don't do that. The door will always be open. And he said, no, you can't do that. I said, no, I can. She works for me and she stays if she wants to stay. I would never, ever lock the door. I'd never take her passport. And they gave me a lot of abuse for that. And I said, I don't care. I would never do that to a human being. Where that's just slavery. Mm-hmm. But they believe that. And in Singapore, it's commonplace. That's what they do. They take their passports off them. So they can't escape, they can't travel, they can't do anything. But she stayed with me for 10 years. In fact, I had to kick her out in the end. But she was an amazing lady. I actually landed up marrying her third, but not for the reasons that you'd think. It was purely to get her papers when I brought her to Spain. Okay. Because the only way I could keep her here was to marry her, and all my mates wanted to marry her because she was a lovely girl. But they all wanted a sexual relationship with her rather than doing the honourable thing. So I decided to do the honourable thing and marry her so that she could get her papers and stay in Spain. And that's where she is. She's in Spain. She's very happy here. She's got her own family here. So that's all good.
Mm. Now, I know at the beat when we were starting to talk about, when you were younger, drinking and stuff, and
yep.
You said you weren't into drugs yet. Did you then, during that period of going to South Africa, did you get into drug use as well?
Not in South Africa. It was after my second divorce, when I was in my early 30s. I went to a festival in a place called Caister in England, in Norfolk. And one of my friends was the organizer of the event. And we stayed in his 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom caravan, huge thing. And he was using what they called speed in those days, which was wrapped up in toilet paper and you just swallowed it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd come into contact with any form of drug ever in my life. And that was the first time I'd ever taken it, and that was 30 years ago. And that seemed like a lot of fun at the time, because I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. And it was just like everyone was doing it, so you sort of felt that you should do it as well. I've always had this thing in my life that I've known that I'm strong enough through what I've been through to say no to anything, but I didn't want to say no. And I've proved that just recently in the fact that I've given up alcohol and smoking. I gave up drugs 4 years ago. It is, and I'm super chuffed with that I can do that. My wife the other day said, we were out for lunch, she said, I feel a bit strange, me having a glass of wine, you not. I said, well, I'm not going to have one with you just to make you not feel strange. You'll have to deal with it or stop drinking.
Yep.
Your choice, but I'm not going to have a drink. She said, why can't you have just one? I said, because I know Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward's definition of commitment is to throw away the cork. And I'll finish off a bottle, no matter what it is, no problem at all. And then when I get home, I'll open up a bottle of Monkey 47 gin, a Fever Tree tonic, and I'll have a cigarette, and I'm off.
Yeah.
I've never understood the people who just have one. There seems no point at all.
No.
But that's just the way mine. If I do things, I do it properly. And
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you, Charlie. I have this February will be 41 years that I haven't had a drug or a drink, and it's I claimed, it was just easier for me. I claimed that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and for that reason, I said I'll never pick up another drink and I'll never take another drug as long as I live, and I haven't by the grace of God. So, kudos to you. So, so I wanted to know then, so where did you meet this wonderful woman you're married to today?
well, this was 11 years ago, and I was invited to a wine tasting night at a friend of mine's restaurant called Pravda in Porto Banús. And it was a place that I used to go and eat 2-3 times a week. It was my mate's restaurant. And his new girlfriend, Desiree, she was there with Nursel, who's now my wife, and another young lady. And the three girls were there talking while Simon was sorting out all the wines and what have you. And we were having a few drinks. And there was a number of girls there that I could have easily picked up any one of them. But Nursel had something about her. I couldn't even remember her name, because Nursel is not a name that I was used to, and I'd never heard of it before. I must have asked her 7 or 8 times what her name was. And she was not drinking. I said, but you're at a wine tasting night. She said, well, I don't drink. I said, okay. That's a bit strange. And I continued having a little chat with her, and there was something about her. I didn't know what it was. There was something about her that was different from other girls. And I tried to get her to come on a date. And she was, the problem I had was I was going off to Miami for a stag weekend or a stag week. And she, in 4 days' time. So she was like, no. Because I was saying, look, let's go for lunch before I go. And she was like, no. Well, why don't we? What about dinner? No. What about breakfast? No, nothing. So it was sort of left that if I remembered her when I got back, then I would contact her. And I did manage to get her number. So when I got back, I was a little bit late. I was supposed to be back about 10 days after I went. When I came back 31 or 32 days later, it was a bigger party than I expected.
That's a lot longer than you thought.
And it was a very naughty party. I mean, the alcohol and drugs on that one were off the scale. They were crazy. Mm-hmm. And so I come back in January, and I contact her and ask her if she'd like to go out for dinner. And she's still like, no, not interested, no. And then I finally convinced her that we can go as a foursome, her and I, with Simon and Desiree. So she agrees. So I think, right, got it. And we go for a lovely meal. We get on really well. And in Spain, you kiss people on each cheek when you say goodbye or when you say hello. So as she was leaving, I gave her a kiss on both cheeks. But as I went across the front, I gave her a little peck on the lips. Just a cheeky little one. And she just looked at me. She said, that was cheeky. I said, yep, that's me. So I said, we should do this again. So she said, okay. So we arranged to go out for dinner, just the two of us, about 3 or 4 days later, just the two of us. But we went to the same restaurant because it was my friend's restaurant. And we were sitting there just having our food and getting on really, really well. And I just looked at her and I said, you know what, girl? You're the one. And she said, you don't even know me. I said, you don't need to worry about that. You'll find out. You're the one. And she was quite in shock. I got a bit more of a kiss out of her this time. A little bit more. And we had another, over the next, I think, a month or so, we had another 3 or 4 dates. And on the 5th date, we're having a meal. We get on really well now. And she said to me, you've told me something, that I'm the one. I'm going to tell you something. I said, go on then. She said, I share my house, I share my car, I share everything I have in my life except my man. If you're ever unfaithful, never, ever come and say sorry. Just leave. And I went, wow, I've never been told that before. And I look back at that with complete pride because it set the rules out very clearly to me, because I couldn't even spell the word faithful when I met her. And she set the ground rules out, and from that day to this, I've been faithful for each and every one of those 11 years, and I would never change that.
And she's the love of your life.
She's the love of my life, and I can't explain more to anybody who's watching this the value that you get out of trust in a relationship. That I know wherever I am in the world, wherever my wife is in the world, that I can trust her implicitly. And I know that my wife will stand by me with or without money, 100%, as long as I'm faithful. That's the only proviso. All I have to do is remain faithful, and she will stay with me for the rest of my life. I could be disabled. I could be handicapped. I could be flat broke. I could be homeless. She would stand by me. And as a man, that means everything to a man, that she will stand by you no matter what. All I have to do is be faithful. That's probably the hardest thing for any man watching it, is to learn to be faithful, because it's not in our DNA, in history.
Well, I want to share something with you, Charlie, and I'll go more in depth with it off the air with you. But it's a phenomenal concept. A pastor of a church I used to go to in Chicago wrote a book on this. I'll try to get the name of it for you, but it's based on that. The sanctity of marriage, the beauty of marriage that God has put together, like you said, of being celibate till you get married. When God joins a man and a wife together in union on that marital day of having sex for the first time with that bride, with that groom, you become a soul. You truly become a soulmate. Your souls join together. And so this book talks about soul retrieval. And I've actually had the blessing myself, and we'll talk more about it, you and I, of being able to do soul retrieval, of retrieving your soul from all those women you slept with. And so by doing that, it even brings a whole nother level of connection with your beautiful wife, because you take back your soul from all those other women to know that the only one who has it is you and your wife. You've now committed it, and there's nobody that can take it apart. What God's joined together, let no man take asunder. And so I love that part of your life. I want to flash just for a moment to your bio, if I could, here on the screen. So I'm going to go over here and show you. This is Charlie's bio and his website, charlieward.tv, how you can connect with Charlie. And he has a book out now that he wrote. I love the title, I'm Just Charlie. I love that title, Charlie, because I've had lots of recovery myself. And I remember meeting one therapist one time, Charlie, who saw me, and I said to him, Dr. Q, how would you diagnose me? Do I have bipolar disorder? Do I have borderline personality? What's wrong with me? And he sat back in his armchair for about a minute and a half and looked at me, Charlie, and it warms my heart. And he just looked at me, he goes, Jill, I would say you have unique personality disorder. There's no one like you. And I'm getting Holy Spirit goosebumps with that, because it warmed my soul that I didn't need a label of this is what's wrong with you. And so I say that to you because I love your title. I'm Just Charlie.
Well, that came about because I'm not the Messiah. I'm just Charlie. This is what I've found out. And there's a lot of people out there that will say, well, I disagree with you. I have no problem with people disagreeing with me, no problem at all. But come to me with facts. Come to me with something you've found that's different from what I've said, and let's discuss it. Because this is not an ego trip. This is about establishing truth. That's all I care about, is the truth. So don't come to me and say, "Oh, you're full of shit." That's not constructive. Come to me and say, "Charlie, I've found this which differs from what you say. Let's discuss." And then that's a constructive conversation. And I had this the other day when somebody said to me, "What do you think of so-and-so?" And I said, well, number one, I don't talk about other people. But what I can tell you is this particular person is out there working hard. What are you doing? You're just talking about other people. Why don't you go and do some research like he's doing? Why don't you just do that instead of criticizing other people? You know, at the moment we're in a war, and what we need is warriors. We don't need worriers.
I love that. I love that. Well, I am honored to really get to know your story. It's an amazing story of journey and recovery and healing. I'm so grateful to God, Charlie, that He's given you the strength, because the strength comes from God, I believe, to be delivered from drugs and alcohol and the cigarettes, and that you can just, I'm going to just say it, that you can just be Charlie, that you don't need substances to anesthetize your pain or your struggles, but you can just be Charlie and be in the here and now. So I'm grateful to know you, Charlie Ward.
Thank you very much, Jill. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. Sorry the last interview was distorted by noise, but it was very, very noisy there.
It was very noisy, and I had to do a do-over because I loved hearing your story then, and I'm like, we got to get this story out there. So everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have this streaming shortly for everyone around the globe to watch it, and then Charlie's recorded this as well, so you can listen to it over and over. God bless you, Charlie. I love you so very much, and I'll see you in Nashville, Tennessee.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing you.
Have a blessed day, everyone. Thanks for joining the Connection Show. Well, I don't know about you, but my heart just feels so light hearing from Charlie. He's such an amazing man, and I just felt so inspired by hearing his story, and hope you did too. In closing, before we end, I'd love for you to be aware of a product called the Lord's Hydrofix Premium Edition Holy Hydrogen Machine that supports cellular health, energy production, cognitive health, weight management. When you drink pure hydrogen water and you inhale pure hydrogen, your health improves. Now, a few of the testimonials from the company is that the person tried it and said they inhaled it daily and their energy increased. And another person said that their neuropathy in their feet decreased and back pain. So I'd love for you to learn a little bit more about the company by this last commercial. And when you order it and use the code Braveheart, you get $100 off. Thanks again for listening to Charlie. And we hope that you've enjoyed the show. And thanks again for joining the Connection Show. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
Thanks for joining us today on The Connection Show, where we bring you stories that will transform your life. The Connection Show would appreciate your support. Please go to either our Patreon page or our PayPal Me Now link today. We love our podcast show guests and appreciate our listeners and YouTube subscribers. Please go to our YouTube channel called The Connection Show and Braveheart Workshops and subscribe now. Remember to click the gray bell in the All tab so you don't miss any upcoming episodes.